Hello and welcome to 10 by 10. 10 tough questions on the 10th-ish of every month with me, Paul Armstrong. I run Here Forth, which is an emerging technology advisory. And I'm in Fora at the moment, where we're in the basement of Old Street version. So I've got a fire by me roaring away and some water because I'm not allowed to drink and that sort of thing. So lots of good stuff coming for you today. Fora is, for anyone who doesn't know, a luxury co-working space, and they do loads of events actually. Lots of live streams and lots of things that you can get involved with as well, from yoga, wellness, lots of things. So check them out. For those of you who don't know, 10 by 10 is 10 tough questions we ask to super smart, influential people, CEOs, those sorts of folks. We've got an amazing one today, more about that in a sec. All of the ones that we've done previously with the CEO of Calm last week, Michael Acton-Smith. We've done Google before, and we also did the FT. They're all up on YouTube as well, as with this one be shortly after. But you'll also get it sent to you in an email tomorrow, along with the virtual goodie bag. So thank you for that. And there is a Moo discount in there as well. You also got some coffee. You get some free sample of nootropics, so if you want to focus more, you'll get those from Motion Nutrition. And best of all, you might even get a TBD ticket as well, which attendees call TED Without the Bullshit, so that's good. So I think that's everything covered, all the plugs and that sort of thing. So let's go on with the show. If you've ever been given a business card, you've probably been given a Moo.com business card. Richard Moross is founder and CEO of Moo.com. Here he's on the line, and he's very graciously given up his time. He's in the Moo office over in Farringdon, and he's going to chat with us about what must be really interesting times for his company. Richard, are you there?
I am indeed. Hello.
Excellent, excellent, brilliant. Okay, right, so everyone's doing a one-handed round of applause for you at home. Sorry it's not in person, you can't hear everyone, but just know they are there and that sort of stuff. So the chat is open if anybody wants to ask questions. I know some people have submitted them beforehand. I've got 10 that I'm going to dive into at the moment. But Richard, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling pretty good today, yeah, despite the weather.
Excellent. Excellent, excellent. You mentioned you're in the Moo office while we were just chatting beforehand and that sort of stuff, and the lights may go off and you may have to dance around a bit, but apart from that, what's it like being in the office?
Well, you can't argue with the sort of 300 meg internet up and down. That's great. One of the reasons I'm here, make sure that we've got a consistent connection. And it's nice and quiet. So, I mean, it's, you know, working from home is great, but it isn't always quiet. So it's pretty good.
Definitely. You kind of miss people, don't you, from an office? You know, even I work from different offices all the time, but definitely there are some, you know, it's not all about the water cooler stuff, but just having that buzz and you feel part of something. I think that's quite interesting. So, yeah. But for sure. Right, I'm going to dive in because I haven't got you for long. Okay, so Moo smashed over 100 million last year. You launched new products. You've come a long way from the early days when you were Silicon Roundabout and that sort of stuff. Give me a brief overview of the journey and where you find yourself today.
Well, the journey of the last few months has been testing, interesting personally and professionally. As I'm sure it has been for many of the people who have tuned in today, certainly for all of our customers at Moo, who are all businesses. You know, the journey to 100 million was a decade plus experience, extremely fun, spanning different products and internationalization and dealing with all sorts of challenges along the way. The last 6 months have been all sorts of different challenges, dealing with the pandemic, dealing with a sudden and kind of profound move to remote working, challenges with how the pandemic has affected, trade and our customers and how we're trying to adapt to that and serve them in what are extremely kind of unprecedented times. So I'd say, we're at DEFCON, 2 or 3. And one of the things that I've been fascinated about is, like the situation room in our business and having lived through this experience with my team and how someone needs to write a book on what each situation room that each, startup, scale up, what they all look like, how they dealt with it differently. Perhaps we can touch on some of those notes today. It's been...
Yeah, definitely.
It's been rich.
What's been the biggest surprise for you?
I would say that the shift to remote work, exclusively remote, was something that I thought as a business that, as a technology company is surrounded by technology, enabled by technology, something that I thought we would adapt to more easily, perhaps, than we did. And I don't mean the functional ability to dial into a meeting or, connect and communicate with people technically, more about the changes that needed to occur in behaviors and ways of working, more so than perhaps software and hardware, and just this, perhaps even sometimes subtle differences to managing remote teams when everyone is remote all the time. Those were new learnings for me and for my team, some more than others.
Cool. When you think about your potential markets and strategies for gaining new business, assuming existing revenues and client base spends down this year, I won't press you on that, that's your own business, compared to the previous financial years, what are those potential markets and strategies for gaining new business during this time for you?
Yeah, I mean, look, be really clear, we're a business that has, for over a decade, become experts in making products that are predominantly handed in person from one customer to another, and as a result of that, there's no business travel, there are no events, people are not networking in the way that they would otherwise have been beforehand. So there's a pretty significant rethinking of our short-term roadmaps in order to help our customers, to generate new revenues. I think our long-term strategy and our feeling about how the market will recover and the role that we will play in that is still very strong. But of course, we're thinking about, how can we create relevant products that help our customers in situations like this, and that extends to thinking about products that are specifically related to COVID and us helping our customers kind of triangulate that and deal with it and navigate those waters, and also products that are, I suppose, unrelated to COVID and are relevant sort of in perpetuity, pandemic or not, in addition to optimizing our existing range of products to be relevant and useful at this time. So we think about maybe 3 different strands that we focus on, all with their own unique challenges associated with it.
I think it's going to be an interesting time for you, and I'm interested in pressing you a bit more on your strategy later for getting through and sort of how you plan, because really you're on pause for a lot of your things, but I'm sure you guys come out with new products all the time and that sort of stuff. But I'll come back to that in a sec. But I think it's fair to say that you're a democratizing minimalist in aesthetic and when it comes to business, certainly something I've seen throughout your career and that sort of thing. How do you balance the reductionism that can come with minimalism when it comes to creating services and products that people want to always do more for less with?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a struggle, right? I think if you ask people what they want, they will give you a list of features, some of which will, be truly relevant and impactful, and some of which are just nice to have. And I think our job as designers of products is to understand, where do those things, where is the intersection of kind of true functionality and building something that is aesthetically pleasing, is scalable, is it's going to provide a meaningful margin and be a good product. It's really hard to simplify. I mean, I think it's a discipline that we bake into our values as a business and into our processes, and that it's very tempting to want to just add more and more things, and especially when customers are asking for them. And I think that in order to design something that has broad appeal, you certainly need a subset of features, but at the same time, to keep it simple, we talked in the very early days about, I think we called it dog paw functionality. I don't know if that's a technical term, but it's sort of like, if a dog or a cat walks across your keyboard, it would be able to make something, that would be beautiful on a new product. Just keeping things extremely simple, where we've thought about the details, where we've thought about the ingredients, and make it very, very easy for someone to make something that is simple and beautiful, but still does a job and is going to be beneficial to them.
Interesting. I like that dog ball thing. That's very, very cool. Talk to me about when you first heard the word coronavirus. When was that? What did you, and sort of what the strategy looked like afterwards? I'm hearing a lot of people didn't hold all hands meetings when they first held it and that sort of stuff. Who told you first, and sort of when did you decide to make changes?
Yeah, I'm trying to recall the moment, when I first saw it, and probably that wasn't the most significant. I think it was. I was in South Africa. We'd gone to Cape Town on holiday, and so this isn't when I first heard of it, but it's when I started to realise the very infancy of the pandemic on a kind of outside of China basis. That this was something that was, potentially going to be significant and potentially very dangerous for the world of our business. Was my cousin had just returned from China, and we went for dinner, and there was a discussion around whether people were comfortable coming to dinner with someone who'd just come back from China. And I think seeing the build-up on the news, and we were torn between, is this anxiety on our part, or is this a genuine thing that we should be concerned about? And this was, I'm going to say, sort of late February, mid to late February. We sent, only a matter of weeks later, came back to the UK, was in the office. We sent people home to work from home, I think the week of the 10th to 11th of March, so 10 or so days before the UK was locked down. And what was, I think, very interesting for me, it was just the first time that social media, in instance Twitter, actually provided me with important, insightful, what I thought was fact-based news about what was happening in the world that I wasn't seeing it on the news and in broadcast media. And that was seeing trends coming out of Italy, seeing graphs, and people who had an understanding of how these epidemics at that point, pandemics later, take hold, multiply, because this law of the exponential numbers. And I think we had members of our engineering team that also like to get the kind of cutting edge news from social media. Yeah, we'll move very quickly from there.
Interesting. Okay. So I know you're pretty good with internal comms and that sort of stuff from my dealings with you guys and that sort of stuff. When it comes to planning your products and your ranges and that sort of thing, you do a lot of testing with individuals and that sort of stuff. When it comes to actually planning a new product at the moment, what's the strategy like for you? You're one of the major players. I know you're not going to give me secret sauce, but tell me what the thinking is around like how a company like yours deals with something strategically, because a lot of people are going through similar issues at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, do you mean a product that we would normally launch, or a product that is related to the world that we live in today, or from what perspective would we use?
Talk to us about the world we're living in today and where we're going, and that amount of time. Because really, let's be honest, no one's coming up with not a cure. What's the word? Vaccine. Thank you. For a few months at least. Johnson & Johnson just announced today theirs is off and that sort of thing. So we are at a sort of like, no man's land. Is it going to be 6 months? Is it a year? And that sort of thing. That for a business of your size and certainly your ilk is a major problem. How are you strategically thinking and like handling it? Is it sort of like just you push things? Did you just push a red button and say no? Or are you still planning, people will still want paper, but when? That's the thing.
So look, I think we're pretty, I am very bullish on the long-term kind of post-pandemic analog paper, people meeting in person experience. I think that we've all been cooped up now long enough to know that given the opportunity, we will all rush to a conference, we would get on a plane, we would go and we'll hug people, we'll meet again, as they say. And I knew it's always been, since we've been around, an integral ingredient in that experience. It's conferences, it's meetings, person-to-person interaction. The Zoom, as wonderful as it has been, is not a replacement for meaningful in-person relationships. And so, I mean, I'm excited about the role that Moo will play in a recovery and how the world bounces back from the experiences that we're going through at the moment. I think in the short term, as I said before, like we've got two tracks. There's thinking about products that are COVID related, and there are products that aren't. And we apply the same approach, which is we look at the market. Moo is, for the most part, not really inventing especially new products. We're looking at categories that we think are interesting, we think have huge potential and are growth opportunities. And we think about who's making products in those spaces today. And we think about applying, you call it professional sauce. I mean, no real secrets. Like we have a series of values, we have an approach, we have a philosophy and a belief how to do things. And we apply that formula to products. So one of the categories we're really excited about today is adjacent category to print, which is branded merchandise. So there's a lot of things that businesses buy and give to their employees as a gift to their customers, clients, and we think that space is just filled with what's the word I'm looking for? Crap. That's the word. Filled with crap. Lots of stuff you get at conferences, low cost, low quality, and it's given away because it's cheap. And I think now and in the future, if you want to give a gift to someone, it should be a nice gift. If you want to put your brand on something, it should be a nice product. So Moo is excited about that space because we think it's done poorly, and we think we can apply our philosophy to it and do something that's better. So we're looking at that space. We're also thinking about the COVID opportunities, if you can call it that. It's really nicest way to explain it. That like our businesses, and lots of businesses are in difficult times. Either their revenue is down, their footfall is down. They're having to think about their workspaces like this office. Think about how they get people back into work safely and how they get people to work from home more efficiently or more comfortably. Moo has a role to play in that by taking our design approach, taking our physical products, and our philosophies and thinking products that do a better job of things that exist today, or indeed create new opportunities that are specific to the times that we're living in, and make things that are useful and beautiful and functional.
And you just launched a face mask, right? And it's made with Japanese cuts. I can't remember how to say it, katana, I think.
Kirigami.
Kinigami, that's it. Yes, I wish I had one to sort of show everyone, but it's very, very beautiful. It's, it fits over multiple ears and that sort of stuff. Anyway, check it out. It's on moo.com. I think it's on the front page. But like you say, interesting product for the times and that sort of stuff, but yeah. Talking about that, you do create a lot of incredibly successful products and that sort of stuff. And you did create an NFC-enabled card a while back, but I know you've discontinued those. You mentioned there about physicality, and it will come back and that sort of thing. Is NFC coming back on your radar now? I know, obviously, Apple's just announcing their iPhone right now and that sort of thing. Their 5G will have NFC and all of that sort of stuff. So now the market is very much like, tap and go and that sort of thing. Do you think that's something you're going to bring back, or you're like, nah?
I don't know if we bring it back, but I will say it's the product that I have loved the most in how it was developed, and the science and engineering that went into it, the creativity and the invention, frankly, that went into not only how the product worked, but how the product is made, how it's sort of manufactured, which we don't have the time, and I don't feel the technical expertise to explain in full. But fundamentally, Moo lives in two complementary worlds: a digital world and a physical world. We're a business founded in the internet era that's only made possible by digital retail, and we're a business that has a very large percentage of our headcount is engineers. NFC as a technology, I think, is and in particular the way in which we applied it, which was using silver nano printed antennas and chips hidden in paper. I mean, it was like Inspector Gadget stuff. It was amazing, and it brought together these physical and digital worlds in this sort of seamlessly elegant, simple, and in a technology that for the most part just worked. You didn't have to do anything. You simply held it next to a phone and it would perform a function that you program it to do. So it had this element of magic to it, which I loved. Unfortunately, when we launched it, there was no NFC functionality in the iPhone. It was Android only, which isn't and wasn't our market at the time. It was quite complicated to make, expensive to make. You could make them in small quantities. They had a failure rate that, frankly, for Moo standards, was not really acceptable in the long term. So it's something that I'm still absolutely passionate about and excited about. But it's an idea that's kind of era moment hadn't quite come, even though the tech was there. The demand was never really there in mass form. But it's something that the ideas and the invention that we created is still there to be leveraged, I think, in the fullness of time.
Definitely. I'm seeing a lot of tap, little buttons on people's phones and various bits and that sort of thing. So I'm definitely bullish on NFC myself as well. Okay, a couple more questions on Moo, and then I'm going to ask you one, not a personal question, but something about you anyway. Okie doke. So, what should we go for first? You have a really strong, almost some would say killer tone of voice, bit like Innocent Drinks and that sort of thing, that sort of ilk. How do you oversee the brand's development? How much of that is you, and where do you think it's going to go, in the next 6 to 12 months?
Well, how much of it is me? I mean, the Moo tone of voice and the brand, maybe I lit the touch paper a long time ago, but there's been a lot of very smart, creative people that have managed that over the years. I think you couldn't talk about the Moo brand without crediting Denise Wilton, who was our very early on creative director, who sort of spoke Moo. She's probably still speaking Moo, because Moo was, to a great extent, how she wrote, how she communicated, and it was a sort of slightly cynical British sense of humour, dry. It's evolved in time, but she was very much the early creator of that, and there was a lot of fear, I think, in the business when Denise left. That how are we going to carry this torch? And the answer to that is brands are they follow rules, they have perspectives on things, and to that extent you can you can sort of institutionalize them into the teams that are managing them. The role that I guess I play is today, which is much less significant than perhaps I did in the early days, is giving teams the confidence to do things that might be a bit more risky, might be a bit more true, but might carry some risk with them. I think brand conscious founders and chief execs give permission to teams to take risks like that, and sort of shepherd and it is, it's not, there's so many different touch points where the brand lives, particularly in a physical goods company where, the brand is on the packaging, the brand is in the product, the brand's in the web, the brand's in, it's everywhere. So it's just, kind of having a framework where you can do a creative review and say, this is all the stuff we did in the last few months, where are we on point, and, where are we moving away. I will tell you a funny brand-related story of how, for those people who were early in their startup journeys, and I saw early, I think my dad is, so I'm going to tell a story about my brother, which I'm sure if my dad hasn't heard it. So in the early days, my brother was running the customer service team. I think he probably was the customer service team one, and some customers had written to him, and he was writing back to them with his own completely made up version of the brand, and he signed off the emails Uncle Moo, which just is so gross and wrong that Uncle Moo, I mean, who the hell is Uncle Moo? It sounds like a sort of, we don't know what that is. Anyway, he would write these emails as Uncle Moo, and like, just probably put an end to that. So you've got to be really careful. You've got to see those things. You've got to try and be as consistent as possible. And in this instance, tell your brother not to go out there pretending they're with Uncle Moo.
A wise one, never have an Uncle Moo and that sort of thing. Right, okay, my last question. You're an NED for multiple people, the fashion consortium, N Brown Limited, previously Ladbrokes as well. How important, in your opinion, are NEDs at the moment for startups? Should people pay for them, and how do you know that they're any good?
Maybe I'll flip that around and talk about how important being an NED is for a startup CEO or founder, and then maybe I'll add that on to the question. So, for me personally, when I joined Ladbrokes, I was not a gambler who placed 10 bets in my whole life. It was an opportunity to join a FTSE 250 business, a few thousand employees, £1 billion of revenue, and what they wanted from me was someone who came from a completely different world, who was interested in technology and running a high growth business. But what I got from it was I got to see how a grown-up Remco works. I got to see how an audit committee works. I got to see what a very senior executive team and full operating PLC board looks like. And I think with that, in addition to things like mentoring and things like the Young Presidents Organization, which is another thing I'm a member of, it gave me a portfolio of help, really, in learning how to evolve the craft of the CEO, how to evolve my board and my team, and help set some benchmarks for what good looks like and what to strive for. I think to think about it from the perspective of the business and what bringing NEDs into a business can do. I mean, I had independent non-exec directors, I think, for the past certainly 6-7 years, and building a board is one of the most important things that you can do, particularly if you are raising venture capital, if you're bringing professional investors into your board. Having an independent chair of your business can be a very important thing to do. Having other independent non-exec directors can be a really important feature for the operating of the board, for getting perspectives, for crunch decisions where you may want more than just the money at the table to have an opinion and a vote in any given situation. But I think especially the chair of a business, to have independence, to be someone who, for them, that is their job, as opposed to being a VC that's stepping into the role, isn't it? I think is extremely important, and I would highly recommend it. Depending on the size of the business, it can be extremely valuable.
Any advice for picking an NED for the startups out there?
I think ask your network. I mean, you want diversity in your non-exec board as much as you want it in your exec board. So there are plenty of recruiters that do recruiting for boards, but I'd say leverage your network first. Find people who've been on the journey that you've been on. Find operators. Very often you'll find that the VCs won't have been operators in businesses before. They'll be professional investors. They'll make it bad, but you might want someone who has been on an executive journey and is looking to go for, or is still on an executive journey, as I am, sitting on the board, and is looking to expand their sphere of influence and their learning opportunities. And I think whether it's headhunters through your network, through your board as they exist today, or people that you admire, just call them up and see if they'll chat with you. And very often people take those types of conversations very seriously.
I think that's good advice. I've definitely heard people say that finding it through your network is often the easiest and sometimes cheapest way as well. Right, that was my 10 questions. There's a couple from the chat. So we've got, as the company has evolved, how much do business cards represent their overall print business? What changes have you seen in the digital print industry? That's from Jim Franco.
So, I mean, of our business, sort of pre-COVID, 75% still business cards. Mm-hmm. I would say pre-pandemic, it's a very resilient product, despite how digital the world has become. I would say even post-COVID, it's still 55-60% of our revenues. So, in a way, we were thinking about how do we reduce our dependence on business cards and build other categories. And COVID has kind of accelerated that to some extent for us. And I think it's resilient, pre and post, because of the value of personal interaction, and I think because a number of kind of built-in elements of the product, which is it's a consumable product, so you hand it out, you replenish it with hopefully the brand that you bought it for in the first instance, viral, you hand it to lots of people, it's a little ad and business on. But digital printing, I think our approach is premium. You talk about Fora being a luxury co-working space, like real world spaces, real world interactions. I think that increasingly is becoming something when we do travel, when we do meet people in person, we want it to be special, we want it to have value, be memorable. And that's really what Move's about. It's about making these valuable moments where people interact. So, I mean, you talk about digital printing, and that's where the technology has helped us in the sense that digital printing has just got better and better and better and better. The quality has just gone up. And we've pushed the envelope with a number of products as well that we've had to invent design registrations and all sorts of new things to push the metaphorical and literal envelope in some cases to make even better products every year with better ingredients, with a increased sense of design and in some senses functioning. So evolving times, and I still think they will be around for many years.
I think one thing that struck me when I had a look at the website recently, because I wanted to see about the masks and that sort of stuff, was just the amount of different variety that you have for things like postcards and posters and that sort of stuff. All of these things which are being used by TikTokers around the world, from bedroom entrepreneurs and that sort of thing. I think there's a real ability now, and this comes back to the point about democratization of being able to get a high quality product, volume if you need it, and all of that sort of thing pretty quickly. I think that's one of the best things I think I've seen companies do, and Moo was certainly one of the leaders in that. When I first sort of found out about you, I thought it was absolutely stonking that you guys could do that sort of thing. So super kudos to you for sort of doing that. Right, that is the end of the questions. I think we've got 1 minute left if you're up for some quick fire. Just questions, sure. And then after that we'll let you go, and you can probably make your way home, I'm hoping, not having a late night. All right, so Jordan's going to give me a 1 minute countdown. Answer as quick as you can, and that's the thing. Hopefully there won't be a lag, and that's the thing. Hug or no hug at work? When we were allowed. Hug or no hug at work when you're allowed? Not at the moment, but when you're allowed. Is it business appropriate?
Oh God, well if it's my brother, I'll give him a hug. He does still work here. So.
Okay. Who'll be the best place to work for in 10 years? Facebook, Google, Apple, or Amazon?
None of the above.
You got 10 minutes free. What do you do?
Have a nap.
Can you explain... No, we'll cancel that one. It's a bit too political right now, actually, bearing in mind what's going on. Okay, what's the biggest issue your business has right now?
Lockdown.
What's the biggest red flag for you for a person?
Not listening.
Would you rather live one 1,000-year life or 10 100-year lives?
10 different 100-year lives.
Okay. Ask permission or beg for forgiveness?
Beg for forgiveness.
Technology you have the least hope for?
Oh, God. That's... a combustion engine.
Okay. Cop out. Okay, passenger or driver?
Driver.
And the one that divides everybody, Beyonce or Taylor Swift?
What, to be their friend, to be them, to marry them? What's the question?
Which one you picking? You got to be in a lift with one of them.
Beyonce, all right, Beyonce.
Okay, well, the beehive's not coming for you today. Brilliant. Richard, you've been an absolute pleasure to interview. Thank you ever so much for taking the time out. Really appreciate it. As I mentioned at the beginning, everybody gets a virtual goodie bag. Thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate your time. Go forth, be merry, have drinks, and socially distance, and wear a mask, please, everyone. We'll see you back here next month on the 10th. I'm allowed to announce now that it is going to be Rafat Ali. He is the CEO of Skift, so if you want to know anything and everything about travel, he is your man. He also owned and sold paid content, so he knows a little bit about the media, which we like to call everything. Absolute superstar. He's going to be joining us from New York. Absolutely fascinating gent, great career, tells it like it is. I urge you to sign up. We'll send you the link out tomorrow as well. Have a great evening, everyone, and thank you for your time.